Afternoon, everyone. I'm Devin Ryan, head of financial technology research at Citizens JMP. It's a pleasure to have Brad Garlinghouse, CEO of Ripple Labs, with me today. Ripple is one of the largest and most successful companies in the digital asset space. And the goal here today is really to help educate our institutional clients on Ripple's business model, the opportunity going forward, and then also gain some perspective on what's going on in the industry and where we're evolving to. Obviously, I think a lot to talk about in there. So, Brad, first off, great to see you. I know you're a busy man these days, and there's a lot going on. But we're about 1 month post-election here. You can kind of feel the optimism building in the room, and I think there's a lot to get into around that. But really, maybe I think the best place to start is your journey to Ripple in 2015. You came to Ripple well before I think the company was a household name, well before people really understood blockchain technology and that moving into the mainstream. So, love to just get that perspective first, and I think we have a lot to catch up on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. There is a lot going on. And I agree with your earlier comments of, very good and kind of post-election world. So I first was exposed to Bitcoin actually in 2012. Peter Thiel and a guy named Orrin Hoffman run an annual conference called Dialogue. I think it happens twice a year now, and there was a session on Bitcoin. I'd never heard of it, and participated with some of my friends. This Dialogue is you're not really spoken at, but kind of small groups. And I don't remember who the advocate was. It might have been Mickey Malka, but talking about Bitcoin. And at the time I was doing some angel investing. And so I kind of treated it as, okay, it might go to zero. It's something better. I frankly, I always worried that the Achilles heel of Bitcoin might be this kind of anti-bank, anti-government sentiment. And, it's just, to me, it limited the market opportunity if you're going to take that approach, because I feel like governments aren't going to go away. Banks aren't going to go away, in my opinion. So years later, a recruiter actually called me and introduced me to Ripple. And what resonated with me right out of the gates was this idea of how do we work with the legacy infrastructure, what we now would call TradFi. And that included government and certainly banks. And it resonated with me that Ripple was trying to work with the system rather than create a fully new system. There's obviously arguments on both sides of that. I can see those arguments, but from the very earliest days, Ripple's kind of taken an approach of we're going to be a bridge between decentralized finance and traditional finance, and bring products to market to help bridge those, both frankly culturally, technologically, et cetera. So that's how my journey began. As you pointed out, I joined in 2015 through a little luck, a little skill. We find ourselves in a really compelling place with a bunch of customers and scaling products. So we're pretty pleased about that.
So talk a little bit about the business journey of Ripple itself. So Ripple payments to then custody, sounds like an imminent stable coin. So just talk a little bit about the journey of an evolution of the company up until today.
So, when I first joined Ripple, this is again back in 2015, we were kind of we were a small company, fewer than 100 people, thinking about different use cases around how do you leverage these blockchain technologies, and to some degree, how do you use the XRP ledger in particular to build use cases that are interesting. And there were 3 products at the company when I first joined, or 3 experiments at the company when I joined. One was around infrastructure payments, particularly on cross-border infrastructure payments. The second was around a project called Codius, which is a smart contract platform on the XRP ledger. And then the third was something around identity management. And one of the first things I really decided is there's no chance we can do all 3 of these things, and let's pick one. And this maybe was a kind of harking back to my days at Yahoo, and the kind of you can't spread yourself too thin around Yahoo to try to do too many things. So we decided to focus on cross-border payments and selling into the enterprise and financial institutions. And that journey has evolved when we started with kind of generation 1 product, I guess generation 2. We're now kind of generation 3, but all kind of focused on that same point, that the costs and the delays and the error rates around kind of the traditional cross-border payments architecture are pretty flawed. There's a whole bunch of interesting companies doing stuff around the front end of that. Didn't realize I was going to get hearts out of that. That was kind of cool. But there's a whole bunch of things around the front end of that, but not many companies are focused on the back end and the infrastructure side of that and really kind of building a better Swift. Part of your question there was, we started just doing payments, and what we realized is that in order to do it well, you needed to have robust infrastructure around custody. And I guess close to 18 months ago, we bought a company based in Switzerland called MEXC, which was really winning a lot of market share at the tier one bank level of selling the technology to banks, so they could safely and manage and custody crypto themselves. And as you said, we're getting close, very, very close to launching what we call Ripple USD, a stablecoin. The history of that really quickly is we have been using stablecoins in our payment flows for a long time, years. And at one point, we found ourselves, we were responsible for minting about 20% of all USDC. And we kind of started to ask ourselves, wait a minute, is there a way that we should be a principal in this market? And for a whole bunch of reasons, we decided to jump in. We will launch very soon under the auspices of the New York DFS trust license, which we are very close to finalizing.
Can you talk a little bit about the blockchain piece of it? Because I think, I've worked in traditional finance for over 20 years, cover traditional financial firms, but also cover digital asset firms. And I think, a lot of institutional clients who we're educating on the blockchain technology, they're trying to understand like the application of it into traditional finance, and why is this the right structure for payments, as an example, or what is the value prop of a stable coin itself versus just whatever it may be within payments or remittance or any other use cases of stable coins.
So, I mean, for me, there's two questions in there. One is the second one is on stablecoins. The first one, how is blockchain embedded there? I mean, to me, the novelty of a blockchain is allowing two parties to transact who don't have they don't have a relationship, but to do that without trust, but with certainty. So today, that doesn't really exist, right? When you are transacting today, someone is passing the trust bar between. So, if you use your Visa card, Visa is the trusted party between you and the merchant don't have any trust. Visa has trust on both sides, and so they are taking a premium to pass that trust. There's a whole bunch of financial examples where the settlement between two transactions, there's a central counterparty that's extracting value to commute the trust between those two parties. If you can do that without the central counterparty, you're going to increase speed, you're going to decrease cost, you're improving efficiency, and by removing a step, you're probably improving error rates. And so what you're finding is, I think, there will be more and more examples of how people apply a blockchain to improve the efficiency of a transaction so you don't have to have a central counterparty. In the payments business, sometimes you have multiple hops along a journey when you're sending money cross-border. And each of those hops adds time, adds cost, adds complexity, adds risk of error. And our view has for a long time really been, how is it that we have an internet of information that allows any piece of information to transmit instantly, interoperably across many networks, but you don't have the ability to do that with money? In some ways, and I say this as a guy who was involved in the early days of the internet, it is reminiscent of, you had Prodigy, you had AOL, America Online, and you had CompuServe. But if you, Devin, wanted to send me an email from CompuServe to Prodigy, and I was on Prodigy, that was not actually possible. You had to have an account. It was a closed network. Well, along come technologies like HTTP and TCP/IP, and in the email case, SMTP, that allowed interoperability between the closed networks and thus the Internet of Information. We really think about the closed networks of payment networks. Some of those are on a national scale, right? You have domestically closed networks, but look, PayPal is effectively a closed network. Venmo is a closed network. Visa is a closed network. And the interoperability between these networks is actually what people are extracting lots of tolls for to allow that to pass between them, and that's where the inefficiency comes. So from our point of view, the internet of information is giving way to the internet of value, the internet of money, and allowing money to move the way information moves today. And that's going to be at a much lower cost, much faster, lower error rates. And so we have been selling into the infrastructure layer now for years. And as I mentioned earlier, we're kind of our third generation product, and doing billions of dollars of transactions, and then obviously selling custody and other solutions, and potentially other things beyond that in the coming years.
And there still needs to be trust in Ripple as a business and as you're going out and bringing in new customers. So talk about that journey and just the building of trust and the brand awareness, because in some ways you're competing against a traditional financial system. You're also competing against other potential blockchain business models that want to do something similar. You guys have built a massive business already, and to me, it still feels like we're very early days. So talk about the building trust and the education in the market and where you think we are in that process.
Yeah, I'll start at the end of that one. I think that the most interesting part is trying to figure out where are we in this journey. And I'll use the internet of information as a comparison. A lot of people think the internet started in the 90s. Netscape was born in 95. But really, the internet really was born in the early 70s out of the DARPA and then ARPANET or ARPANET, DARPANET, whatever. And then you connect universities, and then you end up getting a particular school in Illinois connected, and they launched the Mosaic browser. And each step was about simplicity and simplifying the use of these networks. I think you and I would probably agree, using the crypto networks, blockchains, is not simple today. I mean, even for someone who's deep into it, sometimes I find it frustrating. And I think we are still in the kind of almost DARPANET stage of blockchain, where we haven't yet had the birth of Mosaic or the birth of Netscape that unlocks more and more simplicity. And it's frankly one of the reasons why Ripple has focused at the enterprise level, because we can frankly obfuscate a lot of that complexity of using blockchain such that our customers don't even have to see or touch that, but still have the benefit of improved speed, improved cost, improved error rates. So I think we're early in that journey. I think there's going to be a bunch of significant winners. I mean, some people would say, well, you already have a bunch of big winners. Bitcoin's at 1.8 trillion. ETH is 400 to 500 billion. But we really are only going to have the winners once you really have the scaled utility, the scaled use cases that are solving real problems for customers. I think we probably all agree that right now there's a lot of speculation in the market, and some utility, some other pieces, but Ripple has always tried to focus on, okay, we're solving problems for customers. We're not trying to lean into meme coins, for example. You can use the XRP ledger as open source technology to do meme coins if you would choose to do so. And frankly, there are examples of that happening on the XRP ledger because it's open source technology. Ripple, and how do we build trust, is how do we make sure that our customers understand where the kind of products we're bringing to market, and that they work well and they're adding value. And I feel very good. It's been a long journey, and in some ways, ironically, maybe the SEC lawsuit against Ripple added trust to some degree. Because we prevailed, well, because we fought the fight and prevailed on the kind of the key points that mattered. I think a lot of people, it built trust as well. And so I do feel good about how Ripple has emerged from some of this. But I also would say, to my earlier point, I think we're still in the early days, and the journey ahead I'm very excited about.
I want to come back on the stable coin. So you talked for a moment about kind of the value of having your own stable coin, but can you maybe just expand a little bit on that and the structure of what the stable coin at Ripple is going to look like relative to maybe some others in the market? And then I think questions around just how that works with XRP, how it's complementary and actually drives value to the XRP ledger. I think that would be great to understand that better.
Sure. So, look, as I'm sure many people who follow you are well aware, and I know you know this pretty well. The stablecoin market today globally is about $200 billion. About 70% of that is Tether or USDT. Probably another 20% of that is USDC, which is Circle's kind of solution in the marketplace. And then there's a longer tail after that of smaller players. Tether is, I'm pro Tether and an advocate. The U.S. government, I think, is less so. That may change also, but Tether has intentionally set up outside the United States, outside of kind of the long arm of the U.S. Regulator, and I think that gives some major institutions pause about interest in working with them. And our view has been there's an opportunity for a trusted brand like Ripple, who has a lot of experience with institutions, a lot of experience with payment flows, to bring a product to market that is truly the most trusted. That we will be the first to come out under with a New York Trust license. We will be doing monthly attestations, and I think we do have our own balance sheet that if problems were to exist, we were in a position to actually help solve those. So now, how will it coexist with XRP? Well, first of all, any liquidity on the XRP ledger is a good thing. It's good for the whole XRP ecosystem, and the more liquidity on there, including stable coins, it reduces friction and the ability to do things, particularly in the DeFi world. There's some native technologies embedded in the XRP ledger, a decentralized exchange, a DEX, a AMM, automated market maker, and embedding a stablecoin, a robust stablecoin, a trusted stablecoin like Ripple USD, we think will actually help that. I don't think it competes with XRP as a different solution, because really we think about that as the bridge currency, right? So RLUSD, Ripple USD is $1. The bridge currency is going in and out of other currencies, and having the most liquid, most efficient bridge currency between various currencies around the world, we think is a needed solution in scaling global commerce.
Yeah. And in terms of the customers, you touched on a little bit, but historically, B2B and banks, payment providers, merchants, institutions. Talk about how these different customer groups have used Ripple over time, how that's evolved, and then I'm assuming stablecoin opens you up probably even more B2C as well, with more applications. So maybe just if we can kind of think about that evolution, and then also where we go from here with customers.
Our focus from a customer point of view has always been B2B. I think it will remain B2B. While a stablecoin can be used by consumers, and the very nature is once it exists on various exchanges, anybody can access it and use it however they'd like. Our focus will be in serving institutional clients, serving financial institutions. Over time, we may serve corporates in some regard, but our focus remains very much on B2B, kind of on the infrastructure layer, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. Well, in terms of between payment solutions or custody solutions, are there different customers using the firm for a single point solution, or is it a holistic relationship, or where do you see either opportunity for it to go, or where has it kind of naturally already been going?
I mean, honestly, Deb, this is one of the things that gets me kind of most excited about the road ahead. When we first started with the payments piece of cross-border payments piece years ago, we were trying to mostly focus on tier one banks. What we found, because that's where really the cross-border payments activity at really big scales existed. What we found for a whole bunch of reasons is, the classic innovator's dilemma, a reluctance to move quickly. Then, of course, you have U.S. regulatory stuff and the SEC lawsuit that only impacted that more. What we found, though, is, and we still have a number of customers in the tier one banks around payments, but we found a lot of demand in payment providers, tier two banks, tier three banks, particularly outside the United States. the SEC sued us in December of 2020, and that evolved to where we are today, where 95% of our customers are non-US financial institutions. And I don't know that that unlocks yet. You will see as the coming regulatory changes, I think many people expect in a Trump administration, but I'm sort of excited about that unlock. Now, part of your question, I think, is the cross sell, right? So the custody customers that we have today and where we continue to get a lot of traction is in the tier one banks. And so we feel like there's an opportunity, and we are seeing, we don't require the cross sell. You can, choose to not work with us around custody and work with us around payments. And I think that will certainly remain the case. But we're seeing more and more that Ripple can be the trusted first choice for solving a bank's or financial institutions' desires and needs around all things blockchain. So that's really where we want to build the brand and build build the product suite.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Want to pivot a little bit and talk about election, and obviously we can go a lot of directions here, but it feels like this could be a seminal moment for the space, and you guys have already been doing a lot of the hard work and have scaled, but new administration, people that are already coming together in place. There's rumors about SEC as well here. This seems like could be favorable to the industry. So what are the, if you had your way, things open up that maybe it felt like doors have been closed, like what are the primary things you want to do? And maybe I'll start there, but I think there's so much more to go into, but just some of the big changes that you feel like you can come out of this and position Ripple for the future. And again, there's a lot of uncertainty still, but it does feel like there is a real tone change.
Yeah. I mean, I think there has been a real tone change. It's just kind of, there's still steps to take. I think there does need to be legislation passed to provide some of the clarity around particularly securities laws, where the SEC has been, I think, abusive would be almost a generous word. The way they have approached it and kind of the regulation through enforcement, it's not just been not constructive. I think arguably you've had judges come out and say it's been arbitrary and capricious. That's a quote. Another quote, a federal judge said the SEC hasn't followed a faithful allegiance to the law. That's a quote. In a particular case in a Utah federal court, the SEC was sanctioned for misrepresentations to the court. So like this SEC has been, I think, again, generous to say unethical. It is changing for sure. And I think all of the Trump appointees that we have seen so far, Scott Bessent at Treasury, I think, is going to be an outstanding choice and is certainly excited about being pro-innovation and how these technologies and how we can put America first and invest in these technologies rather than pushing them offshore. I mean, honestly, Devin, I get fired up about this stuff, but I mean, the irony of what was happening is we were saying we're going to treat the U.S. companies harsher and push activity offshore where it's less regulated and more risky, instead of actually supporting U.S. companies and helping and providing clear rules of the road. I think we will get some legislative clarity. There's a bill called Fit 21 that passed the House last summer. Probably, I don't know if it'd be a derivative of that or something new, but I think in the first half of next year, we will see legislation that provides some clarity that will move more of the responsibility towards the CFTC. As of today, I believe Paul Atkins has been appointed as SEC chair, and I think he's an outstanding choice. And I think he's very knowledgeable about this industry, and I think it's a good thing for the crypto industry to have this change happening, and I think it sets up for a very pro-innovation, pro-crypto federal government.
Yeah, it would seem
we could go on more on that stuff, but
yeah. Yeah, and I think there's more to get into, and I guess just from a legislative perspective, this was really the first election where this was a front and center topic, and clearly it moved the needle, and it doesn't feel like we're going back in like the genie's out of the bottle here, and it can only go one direction, and so you have legislators in the House and Senate that the majority are on record being, I think, positive on the industry. So in terms of just the ability to actually get something done in DC, you're closer to it even than I am. Like, does it feel like post-election there's still real momentum, whether it's Fit 21 or something else, that like this will be a priority in this next administration, and really, it's great that there's in the administration, but you really need the legislators to act.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic, and I think there's a bunch of data points to support that. And to your point, is it Fit 21 or a derivative of Fit 21? I don't know. JD Vance, as a senator, his office had written a proposed bill around market structure for crypto. It was never introduced, but I think given that JD Vance's office drafted that, I think that also might get a serious look, and I think that's a very positive bill in providing the clarity the industry has asked for. So I'm very optimistic that will happen. I think on the federal side, I mean, there's a lot of attention right now around something that also has really stymied and constrained growth of this industry in the United States, which is loosely called Operation Choke Point 2.0, which has been the debanking of crypto and kind of in the shadows, in the whispers. And that debanking was done in, maybe continues, I don't know. Ripple has had problems with that. I personally got debanked. It's really, in my view, super un-American. These are law-abiding Ripple. And again, like, we now have that from a federal court. The SEC certainly investigated us for years and read every email I ever wrote. So, if there was bad acts, that they would have, I'm sure they would have happily gone after it. So I think my guess is there'll be an executive order very early in the Trump administration, putting an end to this Operation Choke Point 2.0. And I think, it sounds maybe kind of small, but just the ability for companies in our industry, for people in our industry to get bank accounts, particularly when Ripple in particular is trying to be that bridge between traditional finance and this decentralized finance world. I think that's good for the industry. I think it's good for America. I think it's good for U.S. job growth. I think it's good for U.S. technical leadership. And so I think we will see more putting U.S. companies first, putting U.S. technologies first in the Trump administration. And I think there really is a chance to make crypto great again in the United States. And it's been, both a public and private war against crypto for years here in the United States. And so I'm excited to turn the page on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it seems like there's an undercurrent also. You just mentioned it, kind of the U.S. technology, U.S. blockchain. I think my sense is that's been helping valuations of the industry, but maybe that's part of when you talk about XRP move. But U.S. blockchain potentially, even now the pendulum moving back, where you get better treatment because you built the technology. I know it's a global technology and it's a global company, but is that relevant to you? And there's obviously proposals, or at least talk about zero taxes on crypto. How big would that be? I mean, are there things like that that you feel like kind of maybe put Ripple as a business in an even better position than otherwise would be if it was U.S. wasn't maybe getting favored going forward? Because it seems like that is maybe the position that this administration is taking.
Yeah, I mean, like years ago, before Biden was elected, what the words I used to use is like, I just want a level playing field. Like the U.S. government shouldn't be picking winners and losers. And as much as I'm pro Bitcoin and pro ETH, the SEC, people forget this, but XRP used to be the second most valuable digital asset after Bitcoin. The United States SEC then gets involved in picking winners and saying, hey, ETH gets a pass, but XRP doesn't. And look, this is in my view, very un-American. And to your point, I think it used to be, I just asked for a level playing field. It does feel like, and I think certainly if you look at the crypto markets as a barometer, it would, this administration is putting America first. And well, I mean, we shall see. It's still, there's things to play out and things to happen, but I think indications are that, if, for example, there's some talk about a crypto reserve, You know, and I think that would end up including Bitcoin and other technologies, which, frankly, just makes sense from a diversification point of view. Um, and so I'm very optimistic that it is a new dawn for the crypto industry in the United States. The United States has led in many technical innovations, and it was leading in crypto, and some of the leading global companies are based here in the United States. But the last handful of years in the Biden administration have been very hostile towards crypto, maybe amongst the most hostile on the planet, and that's coming to an end. So that's going to be good for the companies that Ripple included.
Yeah. Yeah, and just having clarity, more rules of the road, capital flows, others into investing in businesses, tokens, new innovation would seem to accelerate here on the other side of this of getting that clarity. And so I'm curious, are there areas that you think about as maybe have been held back from an innovation perspective and we're about to really unlock them, or just interesting use cases that you feel like now have a chance to see if they can move forward? Like, whether it's at Ripple or just more broadly for the industry, things you think could be interesting.
Yeah, well, so first of all, one of the things you said there that I just want to comment on is, some people, particularly the Elizabeth Warrens of the world, would espouse this idea that the crypto industry doesn't want to be regulated. The exact opposite is true. What the industry has been asking for is clear rules of the road so that we can be regulated. We know how to manage within that. And the vast, vast, vast majority of people I know in crypto want to be good actors. We just need to know what that looks like. So to your point, it's not that people want deregulation, they want clear regulation. And I think we're on the cusp of getting that. The second part of your question, I missed.
Just around innovation or areas that you think could flourish with more clear regulation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing is, I think most of the major financial institutions in the United States have taken a view of we're going to lean out until there's clarity, because we don't want to take the risk. We don't want to be in the crosshairs of Gary Gensler, so we're just going to sit out. That has started to change, and you've seen some really pioneering, well, at a minimum, pioneering comments, and beyond that, from the BlackRocks of the world. I do think, to your point on some pioneering areas, I think tokenization of real world assets, I think is an area we're going to see a lot of activity once there is some of that clarity, because you see financial institutions realize that tokenization reduces friction, it reduces cost, improves the overall efficiency of transactions. And I think there's a bunch of industries where the efficiency of a financial transaction is high friction. And so, we can do this better. And when we do this better, the U.S. economy operates more efficiently. And that's good for everybody. Vlad, the CEO of Robinhood, commented publicly that, by virtue of the work they had done to build out settlement of crypto in their infrastructure, they're actually able to reduce by an order of magnitude the cost of their securities settlement. That's a very big deal. An order of magnitude decrease in costs, and their customers benefit from that. So, again, I think we should start from, how do we help the United States be competitive? How do we help the United States consumer? How do we help the United States small business? These are technologies that unlock efficiency at scale. Ripple's focused on one set of problems. There's a bunch of other amazing companies doing stuff in other verticals that I get super excited about. And I think it's good for the industry. And I think, all boats can rise.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. In terms of XRP, so obviously been on a really meteoric rise here. I think it's up 5x maybe since pre-election. So, huge run. There's been XRP ETFs filed. We're talking about a crypto reserve potentially, as you just talked about, things that could be driving enthusiasm, US-centric blockchains, institutional new demand. What do you think's in the market narrative? Maybe I hit on a bunch of things, but just talk about kind of the demand for XRP, and where do you see the market moving? I'm not sure how much you can share on the token itself, but yeah, I'd love to hear about what you think is going on.
Well, I mean, the good news is it's open source technology, and to the extent for better or worse, don't necessarily have that much proprietary, like, here's where it's going. My optimism around crypto at large is very high. And it's because some things we've already talked about. It's because the vast majority of cryptos are very inflation resistant. So I think that the market overall, I predicted it about just about a year ago, maybe 13 months ago, I think I predicted that the market might hit as high as 5 trillion this year. That, with only a month left, that seems aggressive, but I think at the time we were at 1.5 to 1.8. Now we're at 3.5 trillion all in, and I'm optimistic it'll continue to trend upward between here now and the end of the year. XRP specifically, I think many people forget because they might be new to crypto. It wasn't that long ago that XRP was the second most valuable digital asset. And again, that's before you had these exogenous factors that I would say were unnatural, maybe not ethical in debate, but and I think now you're seeing that change. And I think, with a level playing field, I almost think about it as if you hold a basketball under the water long enough, eventually you let go of it and it shoots up. But why are we surprised by this? Somebody was holding it underwater and now it's rising. So look, I feel like it feels somewhat vindicating, I'll be honest with you. And but I think we should measure these over a long arc of time. I encourage Ripple employees. Yes, we are aware XRP has gone up in value, but we really do try to take a very long-term view about what we're building and how that contributes to an internet of value, and how XRP can be a critical component of an internet of value.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like trying to disconnect some of the speculation from obviously the use case and ultimately how to think about the value. But my work as an analyst, we look at flow of funds, covering stocks for 20 plus years. And when you remove a huge barrier to inflows, what happens is, and there's demand, price goes up. And, so we've been obviously talking about these ETFs, and I still personally think we're in the very early innings of demand into just even the Bitcoin ETFs, let alone as people kind of go down the path into other assets. And so, that's hundreds of billions of dollars, in my opinion, over the next few years. And then you talk about demand from something like a reserve, which, in my opinion, it would probably far surpass the demand for even the ETF. So, it's an interesting just dynamic of like trying to set price on something where you essentially had a massive restriction on the ability to buy the demand side. And so price discovery is going to be interesting here for a while, I think.
Yeah. Look, I agree with 1,000% of that. And, I'm an optimistic guy who likes to look forward about where the world's going. I do hope there is a little bit of backward-looking reflection about what went on here. And, I think there's some not great facts that I hope come to light. So, look, I think it'll be interesting to see where things settle out. It is shocking. I have pointed out privately to friends, but I'd point out, semi-publicly here, you can now put a price on the SEC's weight on the crypto market, right? The SEC has been sitting, but their knee has been on the neck of the crypto market. And when that knee came off, the value went from about 2.3 trillion, I think, to about 3.5 trillion. So that cost was over $1 trillion. Gary Gensler's knee removed is worth $1 trillion. When we think about the SEC's mission being to protect investors, that's the first sentence of their mission. It's puzzling, and it's no wonder why so many people are frustrated with how the SEC behaved in this administration. And I think it's actually sad because it's eroded the credibility, and we should be proud of our government agencies and the work they do on behalf of citizens. That's my editorial opinion. You can skip over that.
Understood. Yeah. So in terms of the Ripple business itself and the valuation considerations, obviously there's an $11 billion tender offer. The stock had been trading kind of lower valuations in the private markets. Now obviously you hold XRP on the balance sheet too, so like that probably changes the whole math quite a bit given the rise in XRP. But how do you think about the valuation of Ripple and both kind of in the absolute sense and ways that institutions should be thinking about it potentially that would be looking at it in the private markets, and then that dynamic of that now you've shifted the price of XRP as well. So I think the old constructs maybe change a little bit, but the valuation framework of how the pieces may be similar. So I'd love to just kind of hear about that and maybe the disconnect as well.
Yeah. So, look, I don't think about it as a kind of there's up to the minute valuation stuff. But I think it's safe to assume that the 11 billion is very outdated at this point. The total value of the XRP we own now exceeds 100 billion. And that is another mark. One of the things I don't know how to get my head around exactly is the way that Ripple has traded in the secondary private markets has been at a significant discount to net asset value. Some would say MicroStrategy is comparable in some ways, but trades at a, I think, 3x premium to net asset value. And you think, huh, that's interesting. Again, I'm not anti MicroStrategy. I hope is a massive success and keeps doing what they're doing. And look, Ripple has been in a position where we have not prioritized going public. That didn't really make any sense in the previous SEC administration. Maybe that changes in the future, and we'll evaluate that as things unfold.
Excellent. Just so Brad, to wrap things up here, just want to talk about the longer term outlook for Ripple. So we hit on a lot, but you think about the business over the next 5 years, and I know like a lot has to evolve here, even in the next 6 months to probably fully answer this question. But when you think about kind of your vision for this company and what you want it to really look like, what are maybe some of the broad strokes of kind of where you see it going or your aspirations, and then what are some of the maybe KPIs or ways that you would judge, whether you're being successful or how someone from the outside could think about that?
Like, I believe Ripple is now and will continue to be the go-to blockchain infrastructure company for financial institutions and really enable the ability for them to deliver services to their customers at scale. And that's where we have been. That's where we're going to continue to focus. We've seen payment volumes continue to grow. We're seeing tremendous demand for our custody solutions. I think there's a lot of excitement about Ripple USD, RLUSD launching for a whole bunch of reasons. Some of them we talked about today. So look, before you and I got on the recorded part of this, I commented that it feels like I've spent years of headwinds coming at me, fighting against the SEC and fighting our own government that we pay taxes to. And I feel like we're now on the other side of that, and it feels like some really exciting tailwinds that allows us to play offense in a way we haven't in a long while. And we have an incredible team here, I'll tell you, that has been resilient through those headwinds. But the inbound demand that we are seeing just in the last few weeks, as the winds have changed, has just been profound, exciting, a little exhausting. But I think we find ourselves in a really good place, and I think that's good for Ripple. And honestly, Devin, it's good for the whole XRP ecosystem, for the liquidity. I mean, the Falcon X team tweeted out today that between the first and second halves of Q4, they saw a 10x growth in volume. There are a bunch of days recently where there's been more XRP liquidity in terms of volume of trades than there has been in Bitcoin. But look, I think this will settle out where it settles out. I think I'm really pleased that we survived the onslaught, and some unfortunately didn't. The SEC did kill some crypto companies that otherwise may have survived and may have gone on to build great solutions for businesses and customers, and that's an unfortunate reality. But Ripple finds itself in a great position with, I think, the most robust product suite we've had ever. And I think it's a lot of tailwinds from here.
All right. Well, I think we can leave it there. But Brad, thank you for doing this. I know this past month has been a whirlwind for you, and I'm sure exhausting, but also, as you said, exciting. And we're really excited to see what the next few months look like from here. And would love to do this again and just get an update on how things are coming together, especially as you get more clarity. So great to see you, great conversation, and wish you the best here into the end of the year, and we'll catch up on the other side.
Thank you very much.